Hey everyone, welcome back to the second episode of Bat and Ball Squared presented by OneCricket. OneCricket is a USA-based fantasy app that I'm sure all you cricket lovers will enjoy. As with regular fantasy games, there's also different formats that you can use, like the over and under format. There's news articles, as well as quizzes, and a lot more features. And almost every single cricket match is featured as well. So before you watch your next cricket match, be sure to use the app and create your fantasy team or play the new over under format, which I'm sure you haven't played for cricket. So now without a further ado, let's get started and introduce our guests for today. So from New Zealand, we have our cricketer, Martin Guptill, and our baseball player today from the SF Giants, we have Mike Yastrzemski. So I'm so glad to have both of you guys here. I know Martin Guptill is a huge baseball fan, but Mike, on the other hand, will definitely be learning a lot about cricket today. So let's get started. So just to kind of first have you guys introduce yourselves. You have 30 seconds to introduce yourselves in however you can. So I'm going to start your timer. So Mike, you can go first.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I'm Mike Yastremski. Grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, just north of it. Went to college to play baseball at Vanderbilt University. Ended up being drafted by the Baltimore Orioles in 2013, and I got traded to the San Francisco Giants in 2019, where I got to make my big league debut, and it's been a blast ever since. And just looking forward to expanding my sports knowledge here today.
Okay. Thank you. And now Martin's turn. So your timer starts now.
My name is Martin Guptill from Auckland, New Zealand, born and raised here. Played my first game of professional cricket age 19 in 2006. Started playing cricket for New Zealand in 2009 and been doing it ever since and absolutely loving it.
Okay. So now, before we kind of get into both sports, let's talk about it individually, your sports. So kind of, well, actually, before we even discuss that, so I know Martin's been watching baseball. I know you even had a chance to kind of take on a little bit of that batter role when DDI came to New Zealand, I believe. So that was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
that's right.
Before you discuss that, so Mike, I don't know, have you ever seen a cricket game?
Briefly, yeah, I actually saw some on TV. I don't know, it was probably 4 or 5 years ago, but obviously from my first video that I sent you, I don't know any of the rules other than
I think how a player get out. Yeah, you got that one.
Yeah, that was about it. But I'm super intrigued, and it's funny because the day that you sent me the request to do this, my hitting coach actually sent me a picture of my swing at contact versus a cricket swing at contact, and it was like identical, and it was really cool.
Yeah, which is really cool. So Martin, why don't you tell us a little bit, how your baseball fondness kind of started as well?
Well, in 2010, we had a tournament in the West Indies, and after that, we played Sri Lanka in Miami for a couple of games, and then we were lucky enough to head along to watch the Florida Marlins play against, I think it was the Diamondbacks. So my first experience going to a baseball game, I absolutely loved it, and since then I sort of just kept following and just kept watching. It's we get very limited games here. I think we get one game a day on ESPN, and that's about it. So it's very limited on what we can watch here. But when I can, when my wife's not home, I'm allowed to watch it.
Love that.
Yeah, no, definitely. How was that experience? I know you got a chance to swing with a baseball bat. So if you can share a little bit about the differences that you kind of saw that was there.
Oh, and on that day, I didn't get to go. A few of the guys went to go to the warm-ups and things like that and have a go, but I missed out on that. But when I was with Didi, when he came out here, just the different sort of swings and things like that is quite hard to get a grip on when my swing's been so different, throughout my career. So trying to get your head around that and hit the ball consistently with a different shape bat as well is actually quite difficult. But I enjoyed it so much, and I just enjoy watching it and have a good time. It's great fun.
Yeah, definitely. So now if we talk about, individual careers, so Mike, how old were you when you first, started playing baseball?
Well, that was one of the first things I was going to mention is that I can't believe that came out of your mouth that you said, I didn't start playing cricket till I was 19. I was like,
no, that's professionally.
oh,
So
okay.
I
I was
started
like,
as a young kid at 5
thank
years old.
God.
I started. So
I was gonna say that can't be right.
No,
But
have been some. I mean, I feel like, and there are a few stories, I think, of some cricketers maybe doing that. I feel like maybe, but I think you just have to have some kind of like talent in you that's within you. But yeah, I think usually at a young age, you probably get interested in sport and then go on from there.
yeah,
on a very rare case, it's guys start in their mid-teens sort of thing, and they're just so that naturally good that they carry on with it. But most of us started when we were young.
yeah, that's the same with baseball. I started swinging my toothbrush at ping pong balls when I was in diapers with my mom. So and then my family has a history of baseball. My grandfather played for 23 years for just the Red Sox, which is incredible to think about. And that's why I started, obviously. Just kind of loved the game from birth and just kept playing and kept chasing the dream.
Yeah, definitely. And then for Martin, so at what kind of age, I know professionally at 19, so what age did you kind of start playing cricket? Was that kind of really instilled there when you were younger in New Zealand?
Yeah, my dad was a pretty keen cricketer. And at our club here in Auckland, he's a bit of a legend. And I've got an older brother as well who played. So being the youngest in the family, I just sort of followed, monkey see, monkey do sort of thing. So I was just always harping on to let dad throw the ball at me so I could hit it and things like that. So from about 5 in the backyard right up until now, just absolutely love cricket. And that's, got into the game through my family.
Yeah. And I guess, taking it on to that professional level, what would you say is that first milestone that you think really peaked your career? So if we start with Martin.
Oh goodness! In my first, so we have 3 formats of cricket. I'm not sure if you know this, Mike, but we've got.
No, I got that one wrong for sure.
So we have the shortest format is 2020, which takes about the same as a baseball game. Then there's a 1-day game, which is 50 overs long, which is about 7 hours, and then we have. There's Test cricket at the international level, which is 5 days, 5 days straight. So that takes about 7 hours a day as well. But domestically, we play 4-day cricket. And in my first 4-day game, I got out pretty early, 0. And then the second innings, I got out for 99. So it was really sort of a game of 2 halves, I guess you could say. Like when you hit 100 runs in cricket, it's a big milestone. I couldn't tell you a similarity with what that would be in baseball, but I batted for about
4 homers in the game, I would think.
Yeah, probably something like that. And so I batted for 6 or 7 hours or something and got out for 99. So it was after getting out so early in the first innings and then out for 99 in the second, it was really the emotions were so completely different. And then in my first game for New Zealand, I ended up getting 122. So it was when my first game, that was pretty amazing. And as a fresh-faced 22-year-old making his international debut was pretty cool.
Yeah. No.
So is it just 1 out though? Like if you're out, you're out.
Oh, yeah.
Is that it?
If you're out, you're out. Yeah, that's the game.
So 122 straight points without getting out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did get dropped 4 times, but we won't tell anyone that.
It doesn't matter.
No, exactly. It doesn't say in the
book. It's irrelevant. Exactly. It's like a bleeding base hit. Whether it's a leader or a hard line drive. Like in the scorecard, you can't say it. You can't tell them what. You can't tell what it was.
So now, Mike, kind of what was it for you that kind of you would say was kind of that starting point in your career that really kind of drove over?
I had a couple different ones, and I think this is something where we may differ in terms of sports. Is our minor league system is grueling, and so I've been in the minors for 6 years, and I was also a senior sign, so I didn't start playing professionally till I was 22, and so I'm already getting a late start, playing 6 years. So my career is starting a lot later than most people, but I would say getting traded was what really kind of changed my complete perspective and views of my own career, because I was in an organization with Baltimore where I was very stuck. I'd performed at at the highest minor league level and still never got a promotion to the big leagues. And they kept sending me back to AA, then to AAA. And it was just this endless cycle of, I felt almost like it was insanity, kind of trying the same thing over and over again and never getting a different result. And so when I got traded, the first thing that happened was I started hitting with the hitting coordinator in the cage, and he said, "Man, I love your swing. I think you have potential to do some serious damage." And I was like, that I haven't heard somebody say they like my swing in 6 years. And so to have that like confidence kind of reinstilled in you just changed everything. And then I went on to have a really good start in AAA and got promoted in May. And I had a kind of similar eye-awakening first hit where I hit a bleeder to left field and thought that I was out for sure. So I was rounding first base, and the guy came up, and I was like, oh, that ball dropped. He's got it in his hands, and I got back picked. So just as quickly as I got my first hit, I got picked off. So we went from a very high to a very low real quick.
Yeah, oh, definitely. So, I mean, I guess when you look at your individual sports, and especially in the countries, I guess for a baseball player, the goal is kind of to get into the MLB leagues. And for a cricketer, I think would be to play for their country. So kind of, both of you guys have achieved that, playing for New Zealand, playing in MLB league right now. So what would you say kind of that challenge was? And is that something, when you were a youngster, when you professionally started at those young ages, that was your goal? So Martin, for you, was that your goal, to represent New Zealand when you're starting out in your domestic circuit, like, that this is where I want to go to? And once you finally reach there, kind of just being able to see, like how far you've come.
Yeah, for me, it's been a dream of mine since I was a little kid. I always wanted to play cricket for New Zealand. And going through the system here in Auckland, I was always in the academies and things like that. And, when it came tournament time, I wouldn't, set the world alight or anything like that. But I did enough to get by, and then it wasn't until I was about 17 and I got picked in the Auckland under-19 team that went to that tournament and really started batting well. And then from there, it sort of just took off. When I was in the 2 years later, I was still in the under-19s, and I got pulled out of the tournament to play for the Auckland men's side. And then from there, it was sort of like, wow, that was a very, very quick sort of rise to that level. And then, I think it was 3 years later, I started playing for New Zealand, and, getting 100 on debut was sort of like you start so high and you know that the next time out, you could be out first ball, and it's a completely different game sort of thing. So it's, when you get there, it's about trying to do your best to stay, I guess, at level, but also try and have that consistency that, you're not in too many low scores or anything like that to try and, stay in the side. Because, if you have a bad trot, you can easily find yourself on the outer and start, going back to play a lot of domestic cricket, which has happened a bit before.
Yeah. And before Mike kind of starts about, his path, why don't you just let him know kind of how difficult it usually is to kind of represent your country? Like, for MLB, there's so many different teams. Obviously, it's still difficult, and Mike will touch on that, but kind of, the difficulties of kind of, one, getting into that 15-man squad to represent your country, and kind of just a little bit about, usually how many matches maybe you would play internationally in a year on average or something like that.
So the team is 15 guys. Sorry, I got that.
So we play 11 on the field at a time, but there's usually four subs. So it's
okay.
For a tournament, we have 15. So it's it varies each year on the different formats how many games you play. This year is obviously completely different. We've played, I think, 4 one-days,
yeah,
5 or 6 2020s, something like that, and a couple of test matches. So it's been a strange year, and I don't see it getting any better for us. But
that's crazy.
Yeah. But on another year, last year we had our Cricket World Cup, which was, we played 12 one-days in the space of 6 weeks, I think it was. And then on the other side of that, we're playing tournaments around the world. So it was, we can play quite a bit of cricket and be traveling away from home for quite a while. So, it's quite grueling on the body. As you probably know, with playing every day and traveling and things.
Yeah. So
travel's the thing that gets you. It's not even like the playing every day you get used to and you love it, so it's fun. But the traveling, like, playing a game at 7 o'clock at night and making a flight at 12 o'clock across the country and having to play the next day is where it gets tough. But you guys obviously get to travel to way cooler places than we do. So I feel like that might have like a little more excitement to it. It's like I'm just like going from city to city, you know. It's like cool, but not as cool as playing for the country.
Yeah, we're very, very lucky. But as you said, the travel is pretty tough. We to the World Cup last year, we travelled from Auckland to London, and we had a 17-hour flight to Dubai. I took my family with me. We had a toddler with us, an 18-month-old, and she slept for about 4 or 5 hours on the whole flight, which was which was pretty tough. And then we had another 8-hour flight to London where she didn't really sleep until we were landing in London. So that made it pretty difficult. Once we hit the ground over there, we were pretty exhausted.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have changed it for the world.
Yeah, so Mike, what is it like for you, one, traveling around with the games, and then just kind of like that difficulty one, I think, you would be playing baseball in college and from there kind of getting into the minor leagues and then into the major. You'd quickly kind of share that.
Yeah. So the cool thing about baseball is that it's so big in our country that if you want to play in college, you pretty much can. It's not, you may not be getting a scholarship or being at a big D1 school or something like that, but you can play because there's so many schools and so many opportunities. So the range of number to play in college is pretty big. And then you go into, the minor leagues and you get drafted, it starts to get a lot tougher. That probably, I don't know the exact number, but I would imagine it goes down to probably 4,000 people in the entire country that gets played professionally at one time, because each big league team has about 4 or 5 minor league teams. And so the numbers get pretty stacked up on those teams. And then once you get to the big leagues, right now it's 28 guys on each team. So it's obviously super, super tough in terms of numbers to be able to do that. But the hardest thing is staying there because we have all sorts of roster rules where you can get optioned, you can get sent back to the minor leagues, you can get traded. So life is never certain in terms of like where you're going to be in a certain city or a certain organization. And like when I got traded, I was in Sarasota, Florida, and I got called and said, "Hey, you got traded to the Giants." I said, "Great, I'm happy to be able to have a new opportunity." And they said, "Yeah, you got a flight at 6:30 tomorrow morning. Make sure your stuff's all packed up." And I have my car, my entire life. My wife was in Tennessee, which is where we live, so like she's there. I'm in Florida. We have to go all the way to Arizona for the next morning, and it's just like, you just got to kind of find a way to handle that stuff. And that's the crazy baseball life that we chose to live in.
Yeah. I'm not too sure
crazy.
That much, like in cricket in terms of relocation, because even if you're playing domestically, you would be playing kind of in that area unless you get switched. But I don't really know if there's too much of that, because the main goal is, right, you're playing for your country. So as long as you're living in the country, you should be okay. But
right.
It's like you, depending on where you're living in the domestic, whether it's county or you would probably be relocated to, that place. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, that we're pretty lucky in that respect, I guess. I'm Auckland born and raised, and I've always played for Auckland. I don't think I'd ever play for anyone else. But for me, I'm centrally contracted to New Zealand, so I just have to tell them who I am going to be, which domestic team I'm going to play for, and that's that. And
that's great.
Auckland are happy with that. So
we need to find a way to add that into our league over here. This is who I'm playing for. Okay, great, Thank you.
Definitely.